everybody, it's Carl from AllBallsNoBull. Today we are at the Moore Physical Therapy Center in Southport, Connecticut, and we're going to be interviewing Josh Heenan, who runs the center here. And Josh, coincidentally, is also the strength and conditioning coach for Sacred Heart University. We're going to have Josh, this today is by way of introduction. We're going to talk about some broad issues, and then Josh is going to do some programs for us. Specifically, he's going to do one on pitching mechanics and specifically on acceleration and deceleration in the arm. And also he's going to do a program based on overall athleticism in baseball, pitching specifically. Josh, what I'd like to do is have you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, how you got specifically into this, because there are people that are watching this thing that might not want to be a baseball player, that's kind of our target, but they're interested in jobs that are ancillary to the industry. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's take a break, just a small break, because then I'd like to ask you specifically what a strength and conditioning coach does for baseball. So tell me about yourself.
So I was a college pitcher, and then I got into powerlifting.
Do you mind if I ask where you pitched?
I pitched at Massasoit Community College, and then I transferred to Sacred Heart and played there for a little bit. Yep. And then I got into powerlifting and Olympic lifting after I retired my baseball career, and kind of fell into the Sacred Heart position and been working there ever since. So it's been about 4.5 years now.
Wow. Let's attack that issue. I notice that increasingly there are strength and conditioning coaches for a lot of levels in college ball. Can you tell me what specifically your job entails at Sacred Heart?
Yeah, at Sacred Heart I run most of the rehabilitation that our athletic trainers don't handle. And then I'm really just on top of our everyday performance enhancement and injury reduction program.
Wow,
so
that's great.
Yeah.
You and I were talking privately just a moment ago about how there has been, and I'm older than you, so I've seen this. I remember, back when I was in college, there was very little strength and conditioning. In fact, I was told not to lift weights. The argument was that you'll lose flexibility and you'll lose explosiveness and everything else. And then what happened? Oh gosh, I'm going to guess 15 to 20 years ago, the Oakland A's actually were the first ones to have a weight training gym in the locker room. And of course then it went crazy. It went to the point of abuse with the steroids and everything. And do you feel that it really is now on a really intelligent plane with the use of stuff specifically for baseball?
It's very hit or miss. I mean, every program is different. A lot of programs you'll see both in the private sector and in the collegiate sector are not really geared towards baseball. They don't take into the accounts the astronomical movements that we're doing with the arm and the lower body to really curtail training to that. So that's where every program is different. Now, you spoke to Brajesh before, and Brajesh really takes into account with his programs what the athletic movements are going to be, what their skill set needs to be, and then how the body is going to adapt to those movements over time, where we look at like a Little League pitcher that might have some arm issues because they're having more range of motion than a normal 12-year-old kid. Now we're curtailing those programs.
And by the way, Brajesh is Brajesh Patel, who is the strength and conditioning coach at Quinnipiac, who we've also interviewed and is a friend of both of ours.
Yeah, and we see a lot of issues with guys coming in and really are just doing a general program, maybe more towards a powerlifting program or a football program, and they're not adapting the skills needed for baseball, and that's where we see a lot of problems. And it's starting to come full circle where people see that you need a lot of mobility to pitch,
right.
You need a lot of stability to pitch, and you need a lot of flexibility and strength. And the first thing that we see with injuries is people have lack of flexibility, lack of mobility, and lack of strength. And with those deficits, that's where we get injured. So we are really attacking those on an individual level. So every guy is coming in and having their own program geared to how their orthopedic limitations, their movement limitations, and in some circumstances their mechanic limitations, and we kind of incorporate that to address those, so we're strengthening our athletes and then making them better baseball players on the side.
kids come in I mean, they're just headed down the road towards injury. Do you find this? I mean, I think that this is almost a crusade. I think it was Brajesh told me that there was a 300% increase in throwing injuries. I know that the surgeries are just going through the roof. Do you find that this is a big issue with your programs?
In the private sector, we see it a lot. People come in working in a therapy clinic. We see people injured all the time that come in, and then that's where I step in and I'm like, hey, you should be working with us because we're going to be able to at least curtail some of these injuries. Now, not everybody is built to throw, and that's part of the problem.
Wow.
So,
wow.
But what we do see is that a lot of kids, especially younger kids, which is really mortifying, is that they come in and they say they're in pain after they play baseball. When you shouldn't be in pain. Pain is the mechanism of the brain telling you to shut it down. And if people are ignoring that, then they're ignoring how their body is responding to different movements or different sports. So that's really what we're seeing a lot of. And until we address their orthopedic and movement limitations, both in the college setting and the younger setting, it's often a problem because people don't know how to address them, and they don't know that maybe they can't physically move that way. Maybe they're not built to pitch, and that's something we see somewhat often.
A real big thing that from day one, it's interesting that you say that some kids are not built to pitch. A big thing that I find as a sidelight is that they watch major leaguers. And I go, whoa, slow down. You can't compare a 10-year-old to a guy that's 28 years old. My next question would be, which is the emphasis, strength, or is it mechanical? I know the kids don't throw correctly, and they're not being taught. What do you see as a therapist?
It's really it's dual pronged. I mean, it really depends on each person. So some guys will come in and they're slumped over the computer all day and playing video games and on their cell phone, and then they're trying to reach their arm back, and they can't even reach their arm back properly because they don't have good thoracic rotation of their upper back, which is going to limit their shoulder flexion and ability to reach up. That being said, that's going to feed into poor throwing mechanics. I'd say the majority, except with some side exceptions, the majority of guys that come down and dropping down from the side are usually guys that have been dealing with arm pain over quite a bit of time, and they find out of just trial and error that a lower arm slot is going to give their shoulder more room to breathe and not have to test that flexion. So that's what I see a lot with guys. And dropping down, I don't think is the worst thing in the world when you reach a certain level, like you said. But if you notice that kids are dropping down early on in their careers, it probably means they're dealing with some arm pain.
Wow, interesting. We want to talk about overall athleticism. Now, let's attack this issue. Should they be playing other sports? I always tell them, look, and among other things, have fun. You don't know until you're a junior whether you need to specialize. And the other thing is it makes you a better athlete overall, don't you think?
Absolutely. I did a presentation about 4 months ago for the Fairfield community, and it was basically taking a kid from 6 years old to making them a professional athlete and doing it healthy, both emotionally and physically. And in that presentation, I featured four athletes that I worked with at Sacred Heart, and I only chose Sacred Heart athletes to kind of take out some of the variables. And all four of them have gone on and played professional baseball.
Wow.
But the common factor for all four of them is they were 3-sport all-stars in high school. They were dominant in 3 sports.
Wow.
And ironically enough, one of the guys was a walk-on at Sacred Heart for baseball, but was on a full football scholarship. He set every football record, rushing record, and receiving record at Sacred Heart that they still have. And now he's playing professional baseball because that's the sport he's kind of grown into. We also realize that the research is now coming out showing that if you take a baseball player, a youth baseball player under the age of 18, and he's playing 8 months out of the year, so basically that would include fall ball, compared to a 7-month out of the year baseball player, the 8-month year baseball player is 500% more likely to have a debilitating shoulder or elbow surgery by the time they're 20. So now you're talking, you're talking shutting down a player for 6 to 8 months due to a surgery just because they're playing an extra month of baseball. And my big pitch to everybody at the end of my talks is always, I'm not a parent. I don't want to put myself in your shoes yet. That's a family decision with what you want to do, but we want to build complete athletes, and you got to figure out what race you want to win, because a lot of people want to win the get on ESPN at for the Little League World Series, which is great, and the guys that have the opportunity to do that, that's phenomenal, and they should pat themselves on the back and really enjoy that experience. But I believe that they've done all the studies and found that only a handful of guys that have ever played in the League World Series have ever made it to Major League Baseball. And so far to date, there's not one pitcher that pitched in the League World Series and has played in professional base and played in the major leagues. So there's something to be said about throwing at a young age and how it might not be the best thing to do.
Well, this is my big issue. I've coached. I have a huge amount. I have had involvement with professionals. I have a lot of friends that are involved in professional baseball, but I've had a lot of involvement, particularly at the college level, and of course have taught at all these levels. There's this gap of information between what I consider the upper levels, professional and college, and it's almost two different games to what they purport down at the lower levels. Don't you find that?
Absolutely, and as on the phone with one of my buddies who's a college coach down south at Division I University, and he actually played up here at Sacred Heart for a while, and we got into talking the difference between a southern athlete and a northern athlete and what the difference, and we kind of trying to peel it back and figure out what's the big difference, because that's where if you're a southern baseball player, you're considered better already just because of these factors, so that you get to play year round and all that, and we really drilled it down to twofold: football and weightlifting. And I stepped back for a little while and tried to figure out what the commonalities was that. And as much as there's a kind of a bad stigma with football, with the concussions now, and the trying to hurt people and the gotta kill somebody in the process, you take that away. Football's actually a beautiful sport when they look at the development stage of it, because if you're a football player, you're preseason over the summer, you're playing flag football, you're getting prepped for the season, then you're doing a couple weeks of your hitting drills, then you're going in and playing your season. So there's about 4 to 6 months of football, and that is direct, hard work, getting after it. And then what do the Southern coaches tell your football players to do? Go play basketball, go run track, go play baseball, go become a better athlete. And they're not, because they're not allowed to play with them all season. It's against the rules, and football and is really stringent about it because they're afraid of the concussions. So now these guys go out, they train hard because they know they have to be bigger and stronger than everybody else. They go play other sports, they become great athletes in other sports, and then they come back to football, and now they're better football, they're better at football, they're bigger and stronger athletes, and they're more athletic in general. So if we can adopt that model into more baseball players, and that's what we do at Sacred Heart, we spend a lot of times playing games. We play opposite arm dodgeball, where guys are throwing with their non-dominant arms and really driving that rotation from the opposite side, getting their hips moving. We're playing tag a lot. I mean, guys come to our strength conditioning and they see our actual conditioning portions, and we're off playing two-hand touch football. We're doing all these things, and people are like, oh, these guys are just playing. But really, they put in their hard work, and we focus, and our training is very specific for a long time, and then we mix it up by letting them have fun and giving them that emotional break from the stringent training, and it's
and there is that's such a huge issue, because it isn't just what we're talking about physically, but it is the emotional. And what you're saying, and I want to drive this point home, is what you're saying is that at a very competitive college level, that you stress this psychological health, this emotional health, make it fun, and his job is to produce winners. You get paid because Sacred Heart wins ball games, and still you're incorporating all this stuff into your programs.
Absolutely.
Is that I kind of steered that?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, and it's a top down thing. I've always believed that, and was able to bring that into a program where it was already believed that way. There's our head coach, Nick Giaquinto. He's very, very balanced guy. He's been in two Super Bowls.
Nick was a professional football player.
Yeah, 2 Super Bowls, won one, and now he's done a tremendous job at the college ranks, being a baseball coach for the last 25, 30 years. And he's a very even-keeled, balanced person, and brings that to the program. So we try to instill that to all of our athletes as well, because win at all costs isn't going to win us the championships we want to win.
I think what we'll do is we'll end on that. What we're gonna have Josh do is specifically, we're looking for him to do something on, especially on throwing mechanics, and also relative to that about correct positioning, but also how to strengthen those parts. Not only the correct position where they are put in correct leverage positions, but how to strengthen them. A proper throwing program, what you need to do for these throwing muscles, and also we're going to have Josh do a program specifically on this issue we're talking about right now, overall athleticism as it relates to baseball.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll end it on
Thank you
on
very much,
that.
Carl.
Oh, my pleasure. As you can see, I'm nuts about this stuff. So we'll end on that, and we'll have some more stuff coming up with Josh.